And the D word is the scary thing for most human beings. You know, that's the worst thing that we can imagine happening is that we die, right? Is the reason death is important is because if you're interested in death, you're interested in the actual reality of what you are, which is not physical. And therefore, being interested in death is being interested in the truth about what you are. And in order for you to be interested in death and to be interested in the truth about what you are, you have to face your fear. Otherwise, the fear will keep you too scared to let yourself think about your death, right? So it's an important subject, this business of dying. And one of the ways that I like to look at it is to say that the practice of meditation is a practice of mortality vaccination. Meditation is a mortality vaccination, right? What do we mean by that? Well, if you're prepared to die, right? If you let yourself think about death, if you face your fear about death, if you practice meditation sufficiently and long enough that you are experiencing your true nature, that which is not physical, right? Then you are experiencing that which will bring your life into true balance. Because life with death denied is out of balance. Daytime without night is out of balance, isn't it? Up without down is out of balance, right? And yet we live our life as if death should be denied and we should only be focusing our attention on being alive and being in the physical form. That puts us out of balance. So what you're experiencing when you practice meditation and you're making contact with your true nature as awareness itself, you're experiencing what is going to be there when the body dies. That's why I called my book Dying to Live, because one of the things that becomes clear if you study these teachings and practices is that death is something you want to get done sooner rather than later. Death is something you want to get over with. Right? Because the only death that's ever going to happen is the death of the body. It's not going to happen to you. It's not going to happen to what you are. But if you believe it is, then you have to live with fear and denial for the rest of your life. And when the time comes when you get as old as I am or as old as a lot of the people in this room are, it's undeniable, isn't it? Yeah, you start having more doctor's visits, right? You have more specialists. You have a specialist for everything, right? And the doctors start giving you bits and pieces of what's coming. You know, oh, you've got this wrong, and that's not working, and your blood pressure's too high, and you have cancer now, and you have this, and you have that, right? But if you're prepared for this, if you've been practicing the vaccination for mortality, what do you mean by vaccination? The vaccination for mortality is to think about it, don't hide from it, feel whatever fear comes up about it. Let yourself entertain the experience of what it's going to be like when the body passes. And that will be a vaccination. You know, it's like David Radin said when his wife was very ill, I guess a month ago. His wife was very ill and he didn't know whether she was going to make it through the night. So he said what he did before he went to bed is he lied down and allowed himself to think the thoughts and feel the feelings that would be there when she dies. So that in the morning, if he woke up and she was dead, right, he would have taken a vaccination before it happened. So it won't hit him all of a sudden like something that he's been hiding from, right? If you don't hide from your death and you allow yourself to experience the possibility of dying, which entails nothing other than allowing yourself to realize that the personality that you take yourself to be isn't real. That's all death is. That's all death is the recognition that what you've taken yourself to be as a physical body and a personality is not true and not real. That's what he said in that paragraph. It's not true and not real. So if you practice experiencing what is true, which is that you're not the body and you're not the personality, and you become familiar, in some of the Asian languages, the word meditation is translated into familiarity. Familiarity with what? Familiarity with the truth. Familiarity with your true nature. It stops, the brain's producing the personality. The thought activity is producing the personality, right? So when the brain stops and the thinking stops and the body dies, the personality's gone. Right? It's gone. Guess what? It was never here in the first place. You see? So we have been indoctrinated and bought into the belief that we're something that we're not. Now, it's not going to be easy to get over that because you've been practicing living as if that's true, right? But you can get over that by not hiding from death and by not hiding from looking at the reality of it. If you look at the reality of the personality, it's not hard to get that it's not real. And if it's not real, it can't feel anything, it can't see anything, it can't hear anything, and it can't do anything. So then you might ask, well, then what's hearing, feeling, doing, what? It's the awareness all along. The personality is calling itself with the awareness. The personality is using the awareness to make itself seem real. Seeing happens, and then the head says, I saw. That's the personality using seeing to make itself real. Hearing happens, and then the head says, I heard. That's the personality using hearing to make itself real. But if you pay attention and you practice meditation, you can see, if you can be awake when the voice in your head says, I see, or when the idea that you're seeing, is there. If you look at the idea of if seeing is happening, just check it out. How often do we really stop and pay attention and look at things? Seeing is happening right now. Are the eyeballs seeing? Can these eyeballs see? Or is the brain seeing? Can the brain see? What we're learning through these practices, seeing is the seeing is the awareness seeing, and it's not physical. It is using the eyeballs. It is using the brain. But it is not, the brain is not seeing and the eyeballs are not seeing. Seeing is happening as a phenomena of awareness. Same thing with hearing, same thing with everything else, right? So all we're doing through practicing meditation is eliminating the things that are not true that we've been believing in and paying attention to, and it's caused us a lot of suffering. It's caused a lot of suffering, like neurosis. It's made us neurotic, which means that we're busy being involved with the idea that we're the body and the personality all day. The brain scientists call it the default state, the state in which when you're not using thinking to do practical things, when you're not using thinking to do practical things, which Ramesh Balsekar called the working mind, when you're not using thinking to do practical things, it automatically goes into the default state. What's the default state? Me, 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 me. What do I have? What do I want? What am I going to get? Who's my enemies? Who are my friends? What time should I go to bed tonight? Why does my knee hurt? You're preoccupied with these thoughts about the existence of something that isn't real. And as long as you're living your life that way, your life is a mental illness, right? See, non-duality simply means, right, that you're no longer experiencing that the self that you took yourself to be is real. That creates non-duality, right? Because the ordinary experience that people are having is subject-object, right? There's me, and then there's everything that's not me, right? Subject, object, right? That's duality, right? But if you take the subject away, like there's no self, there is no me here, right? You stop that dream from occurring, right? Then what's left? The subject is gone. And if the subject is gone, all there is everything. So you become everything, just like you always were. You become everything. It doesn't matter to me. Either way, it doesn't matter, because the only reason the idea of suffering threatens you is because of who you take yourself to be. If you're worried about what's going to happen to the body that might be uncomfortable, right? Who's worrying? That's the point. Who's worrying, right? Because it's the end. It's what everybody's afraid is true. It's the final end. You will be gone. You will be gone. But through meditation, you're practicing experiencing something that's not physical, that didn't get born and therefore is not going to die. Now, I know that compared to what you believe and how real you think what you believe is, that may not be sufficient. That's why practice is necessary. You can understand the concepts, you know, everybody in this room is smart enough to understand the concepts I'm talking about, right? But that's not going to change the way you're living your life, or it's not going to change the beliefs that you have that'll still be affecting your experience. That's why the practice is necessary. It takes time to come out of this because it took time to get into this. But like my friend Paul Hederman says, in the end, you'll have a good laugh if you wake up to the truth, because you'll discover that you were never in what you thought you had to get out of. You were never in what you thought you had to get out of. You were never the personality to begin with, and you were never the body to begin with, so you never had to get out of it. You just thought you had to get out of it, and so you had to practice to make it seem like it's real. It takes time. It takes time. You can't, this is not, that's why I talk about, you know, this is like learning how to play the drums or play the piano or play the guitar. No, anybody that's sane knows that you can't just pick up one of those instruments and start playing music, right? But how many of us have the patience to go through all the practicing necessary to get to the place to play music? The only difference between that and this is much more important than playing the guitar, right? This is about playing your life. This is about being able to be the experience of the jazz of life. Life is like jazz, right? It doesn't have a particular melody, right? Yeah. And when you're awake, you can become a jazz musician. When you're awake, you can be present in such a way that you have fun playing with the possibility. That's jazz, isn't it? A musician that plays jazz is having fun playing with the possibility that the music is, no longer being limited by a melody, right? Using their ability to understand music to go all over the place with the melodies. That's called jazz. And if you wake up, your life becomes like jazz. You have fun going all over the place with the possibilities. It's hard to imagine from the pea shooter brain view that most of us are living our life in. But as your mind opens up and you begin to see, you begin to see what's possible in terms of the human experience, right? It's just mind-blowing, literally mind-blowing. And the key that you want to be aware of, see, a lot of people that learn to meditate, they just learn it the simple, straightforward way, just follow your breath. First of all, it's not yours, right? And secondly, it's the body breathing, and you're looking at the body breathing. If you want to really take this trip, if you really want to walk this path, if you really want to wake up, then when you're meditating, you have to get to the point where you're experiencing, you're the awareness watching this body sit there and meditate. If you can get to that point, then you'll start being the awareness that's watching this body all the time, watching the mind, the body, the emotions, the other people, right? And that awareness that's watching life happen is never affected by what's happening. That's the beauty. That's the blessing. That's the gift. That's the possibility. You know, when you're having a consistent, stable experience of your true nature, what's happening is a show, not something that you have to be afraid of. It's a movie, not something you have to be afraid of, right? And I know, and you know, that there are a lot of people suffering right now, more than there have been in my lifetime because of the politics and everything else, right? So the thing about this class is it can reduce suffering. It can allow people to practice something that will allow them to calm down, bring their blood pressure down, allow them to sleep better, allow them to be more awake in their relationships with other people, allow them to be able to face the things that you're afraid of, like death. You know, so that when these things happen, when the things that the Buddha said are going to happen to all of us, old age, sickness, and death, when they happen, you can have grace. You can be graceful. You can be happy at the same time that the body's falling apart. And it's possible. The masters of meditation, when they were dying and when they were in pain, they did not suffer. They did not suffer. They were able to experience the awareness, watching the body, watching the pain, watching the emotions, right? But the awareness that you are does not suffer. It stays the same all the time. That's the beauty of it. That's the thing that we're really seeking in this life, is stability, isn't it? if we could just get something that doesn't change and it stays the same all the time, that is stable and is unaffected by the changing world and the changing emotions and the changing thoughts. It's stable and it's unaffected by all that. And it can really experience the experience of existence. That's the heart of the matter. That's what the Heart Sutra says. You know, when it is seen in the Heart Sutra, what the Buddha is saying to one of his students is, when you see that there is no self, when you see that there is no self, right, then you're free. Then you're free, you're awake, you're alive, and you're experiencing everything as it is, not as you thought it was. And as it is perfect.